Yeah, I do want to talk about Effie Trinket some more. And here's the thing. I'm treating book Effie and movie Effie as basically completely different characters because really by the events of Mockingjay in particular, they are functionally completely different characters. And Sunrise on the Reaping really brings that into focus significantly more. So we're going to start with book Effie because book Effie is interesting. Her character arc is almost, if we look at it chronologically, in chronological order, starting with Sunrise on the Reaping, her character arc is almost one of social regression in terms of how we're thinking about progress and how we're thinking about acceptance of people in the districts. And that mirrors what we see from the capital and what we see from how the capital is and acts towards people from the districts. Because when we look at the way the capital treats people from the districts during Snow's time when he's growing up, when he's the same age that all of our central protagonists are, right? Between like 16 and 20-ish. During Snow's growing up time, during Ballad, people from the districts aren't like accepted, but they can buy their way in. There is social mobility there. There is a ladder that is there that is present to climb, which means that somewhere within the capital there is a sense of people from the districts can be accepted. Not if they were rebels, certainly not, but if they just happened to be living out in the districts and then they bought their way up and they're super loyal to the capital, great, sure. And that's what we see with Sejanus Plinth's family. Now, Effie's family, we're, not actually that much further in. We're talking the 50th games as opposed to the 10th, so that's like a 40-year difference, but that is one generation removed. By the point of Sunrise on the Reaping, when Effie is a senior or a recent grad, we can assume that she's like maybe 20-ish years old. Like maybe she's 22. We're going to treat her like a college senior. At that point, Effie says, oh, no, my family wasn't rebel sympathizers, but we have other shame that we have to cover up and be super, super loyal to the capital in order to avoid continuing to stain the Trinket family name, right? So a couple of things come to mind. One, the Trinket family is biased as far as people from the districts are concerned, but both Proserpina and Effie treat the tributes from District 12 like people, Effie especially. She and Maisley actually have a good moment where they're like friends, because they're sitting there talking about makeup just like normal teenage to young adult girls do. Meanwhile, we have the whole other separate question of what was the Trinket family's secret shame? My theory with this is it was cannibalism, because there's bloodstains on the clothes and there's a tool belt with it, with clothing that doesn't really go with a tool belt, and the only other character that we've seen with something like that is Nero Price and his family, who we meet in Ballad, and they are confirmed cannibals. We know that for sure because Snow sees them doing it. It's early enough on in the narrative that even Snow's super unreliable narration, it's from a young enough age that, like, it might be twisted, but we can pretty much believe that it's true. So Effie starts from a point of surprising amounts of sympathy for somebody from the districts and regresses over the course of the next 24 years to the point where she is disgusted but not surprised to see Katniss eating the meal on the train with her hands like an animal on purpose to piss her off. She is disgusted but not surprised. And some of that we can take as she's just not surprised that a kid from 12 has spirit. But because, she's met Maisley. But also I think that we can look at this as her view towards the districts has soured over the course of this period of time. Now, part of the reason why I think that this might be true, being sent to District 12, being sent to the districts at all was a punishment for Effie. I think for treating Maisley like a human and for befriending Haymitch and then having her name mentioned anywhere near the victors of the 50th Hunger Games, the victor, singular, when she wasn't actually supposed to be there or involved at all. Miss Effie Trinket was punished for treating other human beings like human beings by being sent, exiled, out towards them. And an additional part of that punishment, I think absolutely, is watching Haymitch, this person who she's befriended, fully slip away because everything that he's ever cared about in his life is gone. There's this idea that I think a lot of the fandom has that Effie has chosen to be with 12 in order to keep an eye on Haymitch. And I think that that is a result rather than a cause of how their relationship develops. And I think that what's really, really important about the context that we have, which is that Effie was a student, yes, but she was not studying media. She was not studying government. She was not, as far as we know, studying the games themselves. We have nothing in terms of on-the-page evidence to indicate that she was supposed to be an escort. We do have a decent amount of on-the-page evidence that she was planning to be an architect, which I think is interesting because it could indicate that maybe she was thinking about being a game maker. And we know that she loves architecture, she loves luxury materials, sure, whatever. But I am 100% sure that being sent to District 12 was a punishment for Effie, for befriending a sweet kid who was trying his best. And part of that punishment is, yes, that she has to watch him slip away into a rough-edged drunkard, and an alcoholic who's doing his best to numb the pain of the world with whatever spirits he can find. But I think that it's also an intentional continued punishment for Haymitch. That the one person who showed him any kindness when he was in the capital the first time is going to be the one who drags him back and forth from it while he continues to not be able to save any other tributes in the years to pass. It's deeply cruel, and it smells like roses. It's got Snow's handprints all over it. Now, movie Effie is honestly a lot more interesting because movie Effie gets an awful lot of the character development that I think was originally meant for Katniss's prep team. And movie Effie has the opposite arc of acceptance towards the districts, where book Effie has clearly gone through a regression of how she feels about the humanity that people from the districts are allowed to have in her mind. Movie Effie, as far as we know, because we have not had the Sunrise on the Reaping movie yet, starts from a very different place. She very clearly starts from, oh god, District 12 is terrible, District 12 is the worst, why am I here? And evolves further over the course of the 4 movies, and she really gets to be very present in Mockingjay, and she really gets to have a really excellent redemption arc. And her friendship with Haymitch is front and center in a way that it isn't in the books. And while I really do wish that Katniss's prep team was in the movies, because I think it's important to show that, like, the little people who have no celebrity status in the capital are capable of developing empathy, seeing people from the districts as human, because I think it really showcases the idea that prejudice is learned, it is not something that you are born with. But I am really glad that we get to see that arc with Effie in the movies. Now, I do think that her introduction in Sunrise on the Reaping in the books complicates that, so I will be super curious to see how that evolves and how they portray it in the film. But yeah, in the meantime, Effie is super, super interesting, both book and movie, because she is our key point of learning and then unlearning a prejudice. And also in terms of how the capital operates towards its own citizens for doing something so simple and human as having compassion. Because when you really think about it, she's basically, like, at the oldest possible age. She is a 22-year-old Elle Woods-esque social champion doing her best to uplift other people through the power of good clothes and makeup that flatter them. And then, God forbid, she's nice to somebody on the worst day of their life. And so she's sent into exile for the rest of hers, only to become a part of a rebellion that she didn't actually ask to be part of, but she's with nonetheless. And that's how she spends the rest of her life. There's so much to unpack there. And I sincerely hope that the movie for Sunrise on the Reaping does her justice.